Democracy That Delivers is brought to you by the Center for International Private Enterprise. Now, to your host.
Welcome to the Democracy That Delivers podcast and our new series, Association Frontiers, featuring the issues, innovations, and leaders at the forefront of the chamber and association industry from around the world. I'm Stephen Rosenlund, a certified association executive and chair of CIPE's Chambers and Associations Working Group. For 40 years, CIPE has partnered with chambers and associations to find solutions to some of the world's most pressing socioeconomic challenges. We're proud to bring you their stories and experts from the industry globally. In today's episode, we sit down with William Pelusi, he goes by Bill, author of the new book, The Essential Handbook for Nonprofit Leaders, a comprehensive guide to nonprofit management, governance, and strategy. Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Yep, it's an honor to be here, Steve. Thank you.
Well, before we go into the conversation, I want to give more of an introduction to you and your incredible work. Bill is a certified association executive with over 30 years of experience in nonprofit consulting. He's the founder and CEO of Association Options, LLC. He provides top-tier management consulting services to nonprofit associations around the globe. His firm specializes in strategic planning, board and staff development, certification and accreditation, compensation analysis, executive recruitment, and much more. Prior to launching Association Options, Bill held key leadership roles in various industries, including financial services, medical certification and accreditation management, association management, and major media corporations. Bill has served on the National Board of Examiners to the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award as an appointee to the U.S. Department of Commerce and the National Institute of Standards and Technology. So he's trained in the improvement and innovation framework of Baldrige, emphasizing an integrated approach in key management areas, including leadership, strategic planning, customer focus, measurement, analysis, and knowledge management. Bill has worked with CIPE on numerous projects around the world and just recently returned from the Republic of Georgia. Bill, did I get all that right?
Perfect. Great job, Steve.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for joining us. Congratulations on the new book. Why did you write the book?
So I wrote it because I think it needed to exist. I've read a lot. First off, I want to say I truly believe in business associations and what benefits they provide their members or constituents. I think they're highly valuable. They're not going away, should not go away. So what I looked at was there's a lot of business association books out there, and they're either very academic or others that don't go deep enough. So what I wanted to do was write something that I would want to read. So something practical, something that has resources, and something that it has actually the steps to move things forward within your organization. I wanted any board member or executive director to pick up this book and say, okay, this is the chapter on missing in action board members. I had that issue. But not only do I describe it, it's like, how do you solve some of those issues? So in each of these, it gives you a little bit more into how you would implement it in your own business association. So it's really a book to empower, I would say, board members and executive directors to really, really take their organization to the next level.
So in writing this, you draw on your experience working with chambers and associations from around the world, representing business in every major industry and sector. What are some of the top trends and challenges facing associations today? And you go into these in detail in the book, but maybe you could give us a flavor of that.
Yeah, I think some of the major challenges is just getting people to show up and serve in a leadership position. I think that's been a critical issue. And I think it goes back to what we actually are using our boards for and what they're actually doing that's rewarding. Because there's a lot of administrative tactical work that board members have to surround themselves with, and it's not attractive. And if you look at next generation leaders, they really don't want to have another job. It's like, come and, here's your job description. No, they want an experience as they're serving on a board. So I would say we're seeing maybe a little bit of a talent leadership drain as the next generation comes in. So you might see empty board chairs in a few years unless there's things that are done to improve the board experience for someone that's coming in and they want it to be more than just a hollow U and all the leaders, the key executive committee is up front. Then you have the directors on the side. Really think of how do we make them workshops? How do we make them engaging? How do we make them problem-solving sessions? So I'd say that that's probably one of the biggest things I'm seeing in terms of governance. But then also technology is moving at such a fast pace at this point that we really need to stay ahead of it and actually be in it, because that's going to provide huge disruptions to business associations if they're not on that curve at the moment. So those are just a couple of things. There's a lot more things, in terms of evolving member expectations, navigating regulatory change, staying ahead of what the world is doing right now and how your members are affected by it. So
let's break some of these down because there's a lot. You just already put a lot on the table. I mean, what you work with a lot of boards.
right.
What sets a good and highly functioning board of directors apart from a frankly a lousy one or a mediocre one?
Right. So I've been at the board table with probably boards that I would, on a scale of 1 to 10, give them a 2 out of 10. And I want to put you in the picture of that boardroom or that image where people are showing up. They show up, they're talking over each other, they're arguing. In some cases, I've had almost fistfights break out in these board meetings. There's no order or structure. There's no respect. There's no communication. There's no strategic plan for individuals. So there really is no like board development or training that happens. So I think that's probably the first key thing is when you're stepping into a board position, you really need to understand your role even prior to being in that seat and understanding the commitment that it's going to take and also the knowledge and resources that you're going to provide to that organization. It's just not the old trick was to put a mirror under someone's nose, and if they fogged it up, they would be a board member. You can't have that anymore. So I think that's the separation. A high functioning board meeting, you step in there, there's an agenda, it's matched up to the strategic plan. All the goals are listed there. Every decision that they make is based on what's the return on mission and return on investment, which we'll talk about maybe later. And everyone has a specific role and they have subject matter expertise. That is a functioning board that's going to take that organization to great new heights and actually work to try to achieve their vision. So I'd say stepping into it, when you're in a bad board meeting because you want to get out quick.
I'm thinking of a title for your next book, Boardroom Uncensored.
Right.
Tell all.
I got a few, quite a few. I could probably do 3 times the book size on that work. So
now you have a chapter on managing conflicts and dysfunction, and what are some of the top conflicts you encounter within associations, and how do you deal with them?
Well, I have to say that some of the big ones that I had to deal with, and I was even tasked to fire board members 2 times. And the biggest dysfunction was an incoming president for one of my clients. And he was very disruptive. He would sit there and actually berate people in public. And he would tell them that they just have no knowledge or they shouldn't be speaking and all of those things. And so that was a situation where board members privately came to me and said, we're going to resign our position because we cannot have another year or 2 with this person. You have to help us. So I think we could talk about it, but the solution is really having that moment with that board member and getting them to realize that they're causing a big issue. And the problem is there is no training right now with boards for conflict management, for facilitation of meetings. Those are the soft skills that I believe that every board should have, and I would highly recommend them. But if there is conflict management, sometimes you need an outside party. Like I came in and I was able to help them out. So I had a session and they were discussing all of the issues around this board member with the board member sitting at that session. And he was just nodding his head like, yeah, that's right. That's bad. That's awful type of thing. And then finally everybody's like texting me and saying, you have to say something here. And I was like, well, Mr. So-and-so, or, this is about you and we're trying to help you at that point.
So there was really no self-awareness.
There was no self-awareness at all. The person did not realize it. And once they understood it was them, they tried to be a little bit more gracious around it, but then they started the attacks even during that board meeting. So they did not realize it. They didn't have that awareness. And then after that meeting, so I had 2 sessions with them. And after that meeting, the incoming president, which is very rare, resigned from the board. And we had a strategic planning session that next week. So it was a big relief. And I remember the board saying, if you did anything but this, you don't even have to show up for that strategic planning session because you solved the big problem. Because that association was going to go way under with that poison.
So let's talk about strategic planning. I mean, obviously, this is what you want to be able to focus on with the board. This is really where, the heart of governance, a board that it thinks strategically, that thinks big, that can chart the course for the organization and, 3 to 5 years out. What makes for a good strategic plan these days? You do quite a lot of it. what was the impact of COVID? I think back just a few years
Right.
ago, in the midst of the pandemic. How did that change things? Does strategic planning look different today than it used to?
Yeah, I would say so. In terms of what makes for a good strategic plan is an engaged group of individuals that are coming into it that really want to make change happen. So you have to have a commitment from the board to be able to do that. And I've had executive directors say, I would love to do it, but my board doesn't want to do it. So if your board doesn't have the buy in, it's very difficult to do. And I would say COVID had a very positive impact on strategic plans because what it did was allow organizations to have a roadmap to help navigate an issue like COVID. They were actually thinking about virtual meetings prior to even COVID happening, one of my clients. And COVID happened, and I had phone calls from several clients that said, wow, I'm glad we had a strategic plan because we had, in our education goal, we had strategies that were looking to diversify the way that we produce education. We had technologies in place that we never had in place. We've used it, we've tested it. So when COVID came, they actually grew members, they actually grew involvement around all of their education programs. And I would just say that they thrived in a lot of different ways. The ones that didn't have a plan or had it on their shelves, they're struggling even to today. I mean, we're talking about 3 years later, they're struggling because they did not make the changes that were needed without a strategic plan. A couple have gone out of business because they didn't have a strong strategic plan. And I would say what makes it good is it needs to be comprehensive. It can't just be, we're putting this together and we hope it makes sense. It needs to really bring in knowledge from the outside so that you're really thinking about what's the environment, what's coming down the pike, what's the impact that we're looking to make. So forward thinking, aligned with mission and vision. It needs to look at all of your key stakeholders, make sure that you have them as a part of the process. What are market trends? What's the competitive landscape look like? A lot of times that's not something that's looked into when strategic plans are built. And the other part of it is we're changing the name from strategic plan to strategic forecasting. And we've been doing that for the past, I would say, year and a half. And strategic forecasting now allows you to look forward and see what emerging trends are happening. So what we do when we start looking at strategic forecasting, we ask and we actually work with all of the stakeholders and focus groups, the board and non-members and members, and we say, what are the key drivers of change within the industry or profession? And then we identify those drivers of change, and we don't do a survey. What we do is, and what I would recommend is do research. There's a lot of research in different areas, trends in your profession. The Department of Labor has a lot of different information, and within your countries as well, there's a lot of great information. Pull that in so that the people sitting at that strategic planning table can actually take that data and make good decisions. So it needs to be data-driven decision making.
You talk a lot in the book about the importance of agility, and it seems to me that this strategic plan is really your platform or your enabler of agility. So rather than locking you, the old way of thinking, maybe this is the roadmap, we got to stick to this, and it limits your choice of options. Whereas, with this forecasting framing, it allows an organization to be more adaptable and flexible to circumstances in a more volatile world where there are many more variables at play.
Yeah, and I think, I always get the question that's asked is, should we do strategic planning every 3 to 5 years? What's the time frame? Right now, some organizations are continuously strategic planning. And now they're doing the strategic forecasting. And in terms of the agility and the ability to quickly adapt and respond to changing circumstances, you have to be aware of them on a regular basis. I would say you can't step into a board meeting and not have key information that's affecting your profession or industry. That should be front and center, and it should be an executive summary. Here's the impact that it's going to have, and that's where your CEO comes in place, or you have a committee that looks at that. And I would recommend, to have an agility or landscape committee so that they're always looking at what the trends are and what's happening. So that would be one piece, and I think to stay agile, there needs to be a culture of continuous learning and improvement. I would say there needs to be open communication in all discussions. So there needs to be that, okay, let's hear from everyone as to what's happening, collaboration. And I think the other piece is you have a professional staff team more than likely. And if you don't, you still need to empower your team to be able to take calculated risks to move the organization forward. A lot of, I would say, business associations Sometimes they don't make a key decision that they need to make at a board meeting, and they say, well, we'll do that at the next board 3 months down the road. So what impact does that have to the members, to your public policy agenda, all of those things that are happening? So I would say it needs to be regularly assessed. Strategies within your plan, this is part of forecasting, needs to be regularly adjusted so that it maintains its agility. You can't have a plan and say this is our roadmap forever, because we need to take a detour. So be ready to take detours in your plan, and every single board meeting, identify any roadblocks in the way.
I like that. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. At the outset, you highlighted the importance of governance, and we've been talking about a lot of governance issues so far, but also technology.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, it seems to me, an area where it's easy for associations to fall behind.
Yep.
So what are some of the trends that you're seeing, and how do associations stay ahead of the curve when it comes to technology? Because, associations need to go digital, and this is more than just having a Facebook page.
Exactly.
Having a website. What does it look like today?
Yeah, I would say having a Facebook page, Instagram, social media, I would say that's so 2020 in a lot of ways. At this point, artificial intelligence has come into our space at such a high speed that it's almost like we look this way and it's already passed us by this way. So artificial intelligence, I think, is going to be one of the mega issues that are going to be on our tables, and one huge opportunity that every business association has in place. I've worked with 2 organizations so far. One in the past year is integrating artificial intelligence into everything that they're doing, and I'll explain how that works. And then another organization, this is the explanation, is a smaller organization that has an individual on their team that's actually integrating APIs or applications to their website and chatbots and other things, that's integrating artificial intelligence with all of their body of knowledge. So imagine a business association, everything that you've done that's current, that you think is valid, is now uploaded to this artificial intelligence. So the concept now is I can now go onto my computer at 2 a.m. and I have a question. Let's say I'm in a healthcare organization, or there's certain information that I need right now, and I can't call anyone at that point in time, right? Nobody's working at 2 a.m. I don't think that's going to change, where we're going to get humans to answer phone calls 24/7. We're not Amazon. We don't have those resources. But now I can write out and say, okay, I need education around a journal article on how a new knee replacement was done, or something like that. It was a specific technique. And the AI will say, yes, I see that. It's in this journal, and it has millions of pages of journals, of this organization. And then then you could follow up with questions and say, okay, how does that, is there any other research that's out there, or that the association has? And I'll say, yes, we do. Here's some links to it. And at some point too, I can email you some of that information. Here's the key articles, PDFs, and other things. So now what we're doing is enhancing the user experience that even goes beyond, and I'm not saying humans are out of the picture. They're going to enhance it as well, because I think that there's a critical piece for business association, professional staff teams to play in this. But what it does is it gives me just-in-time information. It gives me value and relevance. It's a huge golden handcuff to your business association. And now, not only am I getting the answer to my question, I'm getting the links to other information. I'm getting potential conferences or webinars that are going to be related to that. And then at some point, the chatbot that you're working with is going to say, I can register you for those 3 conferences. Let me do that, and I'll send you a calendar link. So that is where we are with artificial intelligence, and it's a huge value.
So AI, in your view, AI is not something to be afraid of. In other words, it's not a threat. It's not necessarily a threat to associations. It's more of you see more of an upside, but they need to embrace it and integrate it and understand how it can work within the organization.
It's a huge opportunity. It only becomes a threat if we don't embrace it and really start to integrate it into the work that we do, because our competitors, for-profit, let's say associations or for-profit businesses, are going to use that and take away our market share. We should be the first to market for this. And there's right now, costs have come down, and there are individuals and companies that are actually doing these integrations, and it doesn't have to be pricey to be able to do. It's just time to get all of your body of knowledge in one place.
There's so many things we can talk about, Bill. The book is a great resource and very rich with information. But I want to you mentioned mega issues, and you identify a number of mega, what you call mega issues in the book, which are really the existential challenges and disruptions facing the association and industry and nonprofits more broadly. What are some of these issues, and how do you confront them?
Yeah, so I would say that the first thing is the member model, and is membership really truly the best way that we're going to meet our mission? And if we're talking about a business association, let's say of car rental dealers, for example, or a business association of product development professionals, or whatever it may be, we should want to get our knowledge and education to the largest audience we can. And membership is sometimes a limiting factor because, for example, you may have 10% of the market within membership. So you have a thousand members or so. And the market is 1 million. And so there's 90%. And again, my public school education and math, is not there, but there's potentially 900,000 potential members that just have not contributed to that body of knowledge, or actually haven't been exposed to your organization because you have that member gate that's in front of that. So I always say, think about everyone and anyone that could be a customer of what you're producing, and let them consume it in the bite-sized ways that they want to consume. Don't limit them, because we're out of the stage. We talk about this in the book, that people are not joiners as much as they used to be, and there needs to be.
You're pretty blunt about that in the book. You say the membership model is broken.
It's broken. It's broken, and I think we're trying to bring together individuals. Well, we actually, it goes back to the leadership that's in place. They are the joiners that are sitting on the boards and saying, why don't these people join? Because it's a different generation, different culture, that's existing. It's like, what's in it for me right now, that just in time, as we were talking with the AI. So we have to be able to adapt and provide that value immediately, and provide bite-sized chunks of what you need. If, for me, let's just say for business association, if I'm willing to pay $20 to $40 a month and I have access to the chatbot, that's great. That's something that'll give me the information I need. And then if I need to register for an event and I see value, which I would, then I'm going to actually do that and have that human interaction with other individuals that are close to me, that match my interests very, very closely. So there's just such a huge potential now, because membership says we're all the same, one size fits all. So we're going to develop a program. We hope that everyone loves it. Now what we can do is, if we have targeted customers, we can really adapt the way that we deliver that information in different ways.
What are some of the other mega issues? I mean, culture. You mentioned culture in the book.
Yeah,
A shifting cultural landscape when it comes to joining organizations.
Exactly. Yeah, it's shifting, and I speak to my children, and it's like, what's an association? I work in this field for 30 years, and they still don't get the concept. And I think one of the things I think we typically do within associations is that there's a lot of old-fashioned terminology. It's in my book, around how we name an association. It's like the XYZ Association. Okay, well, now we're using terminology that's old-fashioned terminology, and it's now implies that you have to join this organization. And we typically don't want to say, well, join our organization. We want folks to think, join our cause, because that's what we're doing. We're moving the mission forward. We're making things easier for you to practice or to do your jobs better. And then there are other organizations in the space that I've worked with that have changed their names, that have gone from like the Association of X, Y, and Z to something more catchy. And I have an example in my book that I talk about, is like, I could be the Association for Environmental Sustainability. Oh, that's really exciting, right? Exciting name. And then you have an acronym, AES, and I belong to AES. But you can actually name that organization something different, like a Greener Tomorrow, Greener Tomorrow. So I belong to Greener Tomorrow. Oh, that's great. What's that about? Well, it's an organization that talks about environmental sustainability, how we do adaptive reuse for recycling and all of these other things. Let's just say that that's what it is. It excites people more, because then you get to speak to the mission, the story. It does not feel and sound like an association. So
maybe we have time for one more mega issue. In addition to this, maybe the change of a brand and the way we talk about these organizations, but also new forms of competition are on the scene that we haven't encountered before. What does that look like?
Erosion is real. So that means eroding marketplace. And that means losing your members that become your non-members that now become customers to a for-profit organization that is now the greener tomorrow, and they have resources that are on demand. They have tools and technology that you can use right away. They have the chat bot that's already integrated into the space because they created the body of knowledge. And it's like in a blink of an eye, you think, what happened? And this happened to one organization that I worked with that did not see. So they were developing a set of standards within an industry, but their members were crying out to say, we need a better way to implement these standards. But no one listened. It was like no one listened until another organization came into the space. And within 1 year, 18 months, they were out of business because that other organization came in and they actually got absorbed by that organization. So they're actually providing these resources, and they actually had the tools that you can take off the shelf and start with implementation. So they understood. So always think about in your organizations, I would look at how your organization looks and feels, but what solutions do you have in place for me right now as a professional that I can take to my practice, to my company, that's going to give me a huge return on investment. And then I will stay loyal.
Well, I'll tell you what, I feel like we could talk about this all day, Bill, but we're coming up on time. There's a lot here. And last question, sustainability. A lot of this boils down to sustainability and requires tying a lot of these threads together. What does a sustainable association look like in 2023 in your view?
Yeah, so I would say sustainability starts with data. And if you don't have the data, you can't make good decisions that are going to make your organization more sustainable. So I always say you should have data-driven and data-informed decision-making. That's hugely critical, and I think that's always missing with organizations. You sit around a board table, and it's like, well, I think that's what our members want, or two members called me, and they said that this is a big issue, so we should do something about it. Never. It shouldn't be two-member issue. It shouldn't be just conjecture on the board. That's where the data comes in when we make decisions. So that's going to lead to sustainability and growth in your market share, the number of members or customers that your organization is going to have. So I think what you need to do is balance financial sustainability or stability with the ability to fulfill your mission in the long term. So that goes into, are we doing things that we shouldn't be doing, that provide a very low return, but they're high effort, low impact to our organization. They're really not a high return on our mission. And they're really not just getting us to where we need to. So what I always say to business associations, you might want to barbecue the sacred cows, because you have people sitting around the board that put these things together, and nobody wants to offend them by saying that program needs to go away. But if you do an analysis and you make sure you're delivering the best that your members want or your customers, then you can do an analysis that has 5 or 6 programs. So not everyone's on the barbecue together. It's not about one person, and it should never be personal. It's all business when it comes to serving on a board. But I think the data, so you're going to find trends, you're going to understand member needs, you're going to figure out the best way to optimize resources, and also how do we measure impact. I think the other part of sustainability is, how do we know if we're successful? So we definitely have to put performance measures in place for every single program. And if it's not performing, the first question at a board member, if I'm on your board, I'm going to say, why are we doing this? It's not providing any return on investment, no return on value, no return on mission. And we have members that aren't even utilizing it. So we have to understand data is the key to sustainability.
Well, Bill, amazing insights. I mean, I can't thank you enough for the time and insights that you've shared with us today. Very, very helpful. Bill Pelusi, author of the new book, The Essential Handbook for Nonprofit Leaders. Here's my copy. Go out and get yours today, available from fine retailers globally. Bill, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Democracy That Delivers has been brought to you by the Center for International Private Enterprise. For more information, please visit CIPE.org.